Hello, and welcome back to Tag Talks for the new 2026. So today we're going to be talking about some things but you're right on time here in January, beginning of February, that you learn about some of the changes that have happened in the Big Beautiful Bill, and we're going to cover some of those things now. But what I want you to think about is making small decisions that you need to make right now at the beginning of the year that's going to make a big difference for the rest of the year, especially when it comes to taxes and retirement. So we're going to walk through what matters most, and we're going to so you can start strong in 2026. I mentioned the One Big Beautiful Bill. There's some changes in there. So we're going to help you see those and how can they help you specifically. And then the IRA and 401k distributions have changed. So we want to make sure you're aware of that you can take advantage of that. And the Secure Act. Again, there's some changes in the Secure Act, and we want you to make sure that you can plan for the year with those changes in mind. And then a few smart moves that we can consider now and not later for taxes. So my goal is to keep it simple, practical, and we want to focus on the actions to create clarity and confidence. Let's jump in. All right, as I promised, we're going to be talking about the Big Beautiful Bill. And there are some changes in that. And the one change that is in there is applicable for this year and for your taxes that you're doing for 2025. So if you were 65 years old in 2025 and your income as a couple was 150 or less and as a single 75 or less, you get a $6,000 deduction each person. So for a couple it would be 12, and that can be used in 25 taxes, 26, 27, and 28. President Trump put that out there for 4 years for you to use. So don't forget that when you're doing your taxes, or if you have somebody doing your taxes, remind them of that to make sure they pick up on that. Then for 2026, your standard deduction has changed. It has increased to $32,200 for couples, and it's $16,100 for singles. And that's for everybody, so you want to make sure that you take advantage of that as well. So if you're 65 or older, for 2026, your deduction for the couple could be $44,200. We want to make sure you get everything that you're entitled to. So we don't want surprises later on. We want you to know these things right now. The key idea here is that you aim at the changes, at simplification, your middle income relief, and the incentives for retirement savings. We want to make sure you get everything that you are entitled to. So pay attention to tax brackets and the standard deductions. Okay? There are two items often impact the taxes that you usually pay, which moves and makes sense for you. So we just talked about those. Now I do have some papers done that if you would like them, you can call the office and we'll be talking about those later on. And that helps you that you don't have to remember all this stuff. I can't remember and I never expect you to remember this. Okay, so we want to make sure that that is done for you. So let's move on here and talk a little bit some things that might help you as well in the Big Beautiful Bill. The other thing is if there is a death, the estate tax this year has been moved up to, it's reset to $15 million per person, $30 million for a married couple. So that means that you don't have to, if you have less than $15 million, you pass away, that means that your family doesn't have to pay federal or state taxes on that. Pennsylvania state taxes have stayed the same. But again, that information you can get by calling our office, and we'll give you that information later, and it's all written down here for you. So we want to make sure, again, start looking at those things now. Don't wait till the end of the year and then panic and think you might have forgot them. Okay? So we're going to take you step by step of what you have to do so you can have a relaxed year and a strong year. Okay? Thank you.
Transition Advisor Group helps individuals and families work toward achieving their ideal retirement. We partner with you to put all the proper financial steps in place for a successful retirement.
Pursue your retirement goals, protect your assets, and transition with confidence with Transition Advisor Group.
Call us today to schedule a meeting and receive a custom strategy that meets your financial needs and lifestyle.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about retirement contributions. This is how you save for retirement while you're working. And the first thing we're going to talk about is traditional IRAs versus Roth IRAs, or traditional 401ks versus Roth 401ks. A traditional IRA, you may save into that pre-tax money. So in other words, you don't pay any taxes on that money. It comes right out of your paycheck. No taxes are paid until when you retire and you start pulling money out of that. Then that will be taxed at income. Now, the Roth, you pay the taxes now, goes into a Roth, and it grows tax-free. So you never have to pull tax or never have to pay taxes on any of that money. Now, there is a 5-year rule that goes along with that, and that is misunderstood many times. So let me tell you about that. If you currently have a Roth IRA, there was a 5-year rule on that you could not take any of the interest that you earned out tax-free for 5 years. Not the original contribution, but just the taxes. Now, let's say you started a Roth IRA 15 years ago, and now you're deciding that you want to do Roth conversions or you want to add more money to that Roth. You may do that, and you do not need to wait another 5 years. So really, the earlier you can start a Roth IRA, the better if you don't already have one, because then you can continue to add to that and there's no limit. A Roth conversion, there are no limits to a Roth conversion amount. If you have an IRA and you want to turn it into a Roth, you can do a conversion. If you need somebody to help you with that, I certainly would be glad to do that. We do lots of Roth conversions because people are looking more and more to try to retire with less taxes. That makes so much sense. And right now, we are in a lower tax bracket than we've been in many, many years. Trump put that into effect in his first term. Biden's administration carried it through, and it was supposed to sunset in 2026. However, Trump says it's going to be permanent. I don't know what permanent means in legislation. It could mean until Trump's out of the administration. It could be another 4 or 5 years. I don't know that, but the key is we can do something about it now. If you need help with that, I'd love to talk to you about that. The spousal IRA planning. So if something were to happen to you, let's say the husband has an IRA and he's putting money into that IRA, and a spouse does not work, but she wants to put money into an IRA, as long as he's making enough, because you have to make enough to match that IRA, you can put in for a spousal IRA even if your wife is not reaching that goal. So the limits on the IRA contributions this year is if you are under 50, you may contribute $7,500 per year. So this is different than a conversion. A conversion is unlimited. This is a contribution, which there is a limit, and that is $7,500 a year. If you are over 50, then you can do the catch-up contribution, which is $1,100. So your total contribution, if you're over 50, could be $8,600. So again, let's say you're making $50,000 and your wife only made $2,000 last year. She can put $8,600 in, you and her both, because you have made over that amount. So that's called spousal IRA planning. But know your contribution limits that you can do. Then we have the 401ks. I am a real advocate of 401ks. If your company has a 401k and they're going to match, even if it's 3% of what you put in, some are now matching 4 or 5%. But if you're getting a match from your employer, do it, because that's free money, and that's pretty nice. Now, there are Roth IRA 401ks and there are regular 401ks, as you can see here on the board. But the Roth IRAs, a lot of times the employers don't contribute into the Roth. You can, and then they just put in their match into the regular 401k. Everyone is different, so would have to check with your employer through your HR department and see what are your options there. Now, in the 401ks and the 403bs for this year, you can put up to $24,500 if you're under 50. If you're over 50, there's an $8,000 catch-up, which you could put in up to $32,500 per year to save into that 401k. And again, we need to know what the, what is your match. Even if it's only 3%, that's a deal. That's a deal. That's free money. So we want to make sure and start it now. Don't wait till mid-year or the end of the year, because then you lose all that money and that time that you have to do that catch-up. So planning beats guessing. Just find out the rules from your HR department. If you need to, give us a call. We'll help you through that, because we want to make sure that it all makes sense to you and that you're doing what is best for you. And always remember, anything you can put into the Roth now is creating tax-free income for you later on in your retirement. And isn't that the best thing? That would be great to retire and have all these funds in the Roth and not have them into the regular 401k or IRA that you then have to pay taxes on. So with questions, just give us a call. We'll be glad to help you with that. We can actually help you with how much should you be saving. We can do a plan and say, okay, this is how much you're making. How much should I be saving? Here's your expenses when you retire. How much do you need over and above Social Security and maybe over and above your pension to make it work when you retire so that you have enough of money? And we run it out to age 100. Not unlikely that one of you or many of you are going to live to be over 100. We want to help you do it the best possible way. And then we also want to do take a look at what the difference is if you start it now versus waiting until October. You're going to make a lot more of income out of that because, again, you use that match. I cannot say that enough of times that you to use that match, because why not? That's free money. Okay? Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Secure Act. This has been around for several years. President Trump brought it out when he was in office the last time again, and it carried through. Some things have changed, some things have stayed the same. So it's important for me to tell you what has changed and what has stayed the same, because that is so important that we know any of the changes it's going to help you so no mistakes are made. So let's talk about the first thing is your RMD rules, which are the required minimum distributions. In the Secure Act, several years back, they changed that you did not have to take your RMDs at 70.5, then they put it up to 72, but now they put it up to age 73. So if you have not started taking your RMDs, now if you started at 70.5 or 72, you got to keep on doing that. But if you haven't, you can start at age 73. And then you need to take a certain percentage out. And if you're working with an advisor, I know I certainly do that too. In fact, I try to let my people know that their RMDs need to be satisfied and how much they would be each year. But you need to make sure you do that, because if you do not do the correct amount or don't do it at all, there is a 25% penalty on that. That's stiff, and we don't want to see that happen to anybody. You work hard for your money, you saved it, now let's make sure it works the right way for you. So if you were born 1960 or later, your required minimum distribution doesn't start until you're 75. So that's something else that you need to look at. So let's say you're turning 73 in 2026. Let's say in June. You actually have until April of 2027 to take your first required minimum distribution. However, you're going to still need to take another one before the end of 2027. So you have to take two in 1 year. What I recommend is if you're turning 73 into 2026, let's take that RMD in 2026, and then 2027 we just move on and we continue taking them each year that way. Another thing I want to talk about today is an inherited IRA. Let's say your parent passed away and they left you an IRA. That's called an inherited IRA. You inherited it from your parent or from anybody, really. But let's say it was from a parent. And let's say there's $300,000 in that IRA. The rules in the Secure Act say you have to take that $300,000 out within 10 years. Have somebody sit down with you and plan it. You take so much out per year so that that is emptied out in 10 years. Because anything that's left in there over 10 years, again, it's penalized at 25%. We don't want that to happen. Again, your parents worked hard for that. They wanted you to have that. Let's make sure we get it out in the best possible way. The other thing we talk about a lot in making sure your beneficiaries and trust sections all these are some common mistakes. They don't change them. They don't go back and update those frequently. That should be checked, I would say, once a year. We don't want outdated beneficiaries. You want to make sure that when you pass away, your money goes exactly the way you want it to go. I'm going to give you a quick story. There's a gentleman by the name of Mr. Kennedy. He worked for DuPont. And he started as a young man, and he started saving into the 401k. He was married. They had a daughter. Unfortunately, they got a divorce. So he kept putting the money into the 401k, had a pretty large 401k, and unfortunately he passed away. He retired and then he passed away. So his daughter, because he was divorced, in the will said the daughter gets everything. So she went into DuPont and to see how to take care of this 401k. And they said, well, we're sorry, but your mother is the beneficiary. She says, oh no, you don't understand. My daddy wanted me to have everything. Right here's the will. It says it right here. And they said they were really sorry, but that's contractual law. He had a beneficiary actually signed up on that 401k, and that's the way it will be distributed. She took that to the Supreme Court and lost 9-0 because that's the rules. It's contractual law. Whoever's on there when you die, that's who gets the money. So therefore, if you have a divorce or there's a death in the family, make sure you're going back and updating your beneficiaries. That's one question that I always ask. When people come into my office, we do beneficiary audits. I'll say, have you reviewed your beneficiaries? And are you 100% sure that everything is in order with your beneficiaries? If they say, we're not sure, I say, let's do a check. I help them call, help them get those beneficiaries. Sometimes they're in order, but then we know, we're sure. We can make a note, update it on whatever date it was, and then you can move forward and you don't have to worry about that. Your heirs do not have to face the issues because you didn't update those beneficiaries properly. You eliminate that from them. So again, I just want to make sure we try to avoid any mistakes that we can for your legacy, because it's not fair that you don't do that and then you leave that to your heirs. And think of it this way, that's a gift to your heirs, that you're sure you have everything in order. Okay, we're going to go back and talk about Roth conversions. I mentioned it earlier, but we're going to talk about Roth conversions. So if you're thinking that you want to have more tax-free income at retirement, whether you're retired now or not retired. I had a gentleman come in my office one day and he was ill. He was terminally ill, and he had a large amount, he had $700,000 in his IRA, and he said to me, I want to get this all converted. Normally we do not do it all at one time. We'll do it in increments. Help you with the taxes. We figure out what brackets you want to stay in for the taxes, and then we can convert inside those brackets guidelines. But this gentleman was, like I said, terminally ill. He didn't want his wife to have to pay taxes on all of this money after he's gone, because when you're single versus being married, filing jointly, who do you think pays the higher taxes? The single people. I was single for a lot of years. I never understood why my tax bracket was higher than married couples. So he said to me, I want to do it all at one time. So we figured it all out, and I said the one thing that is you need to take into consideration is IRMA, Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. That is your Part B of your Medicare, Part B and D. So if you make over a couple over $218,000 per year, your IRMA is going to go up. So if you're under 218, you would pay $202 per month, $202.90 it is for 2026, a month for your Part B out of your Social Security. If you go over that 218 up to 274, I believe it's $274 that you pay, and it keeps going up. If you go over those brackets, it keeps moving up. So, and I said that to him. His was going to go up several brackets. He said, I don't care. It's 1 year. I have to pay that 1 year, and then it's done, and she has a tax-free income for the rest of her life, and she's not going to be paying high taxes as a single person when something happens to me. So we did it. So that's something else that a lot of planning needs to go into that. And you need to know how many years. If we're going to do it over 5 years, you may have to pay that extra IRMA over a 5-year period. We have to look at that. Or maybe we can plan that you can stay just under it and not have to pay any extra Part B Social Security. All planning that goes into it. And that's what we help people with. We help people just like you many, many times. So we're glad to do that for you. Now, the charitable giving strategies. That amount has gone up also. Let me tell you what a charitable giving, it's called a QCD, Qualified Charitable Distribution. What is that? If you are age 70 and a half or older and you're a giver, let's say you're giving over the year, maybe let's say $7,000 you gave last year in charitable distributions. You can actually take that out of your IRA, have that sent to your charity, and that is tax-free to you. It also is not added in to your MAGI. So that is a good thing to do. Rather than taking the $7,000 out of non-qualified money, take it out of your qualified money, your IRAs, 401ks, but you got to do it properly. So let's say you come to me and you say, here's the list of the people that I want to get charitable donations this year. I need their names, the EIN numbers, their addresses, and let's say you have a Schwab account, and we work with that, and we tell Schwab, you want to give a total of $7,000. We have all your charities listed. We want to give $7,000 total. They will write a check out to each of your charities for the amount that you specify and send that out. Now, at 70 and a half, you can start taking that out, but you don't have to start your required minimum distributions till 73. Why that's important is because now that's lowering the amount that you have in your IRAs. So when you do need to start your required minimum distributions, they're lower. So therefore, you're paying a little bit less taxes. Even when you have to do your required minimum distribution, let's say your required minimum distribution is $10,000 and you want to give $7,000 to your charities. We get the qualified distribution out, send $7,000 to your charities, and then you take the rest out, which is $3,000, and you only have to pay taxes on $3,000. Strategies that can make a big difference in your taxes. You need to know this, and if you need help with it, I would be glad to help you with that. That is one area that I do work with very much in getting all those things done.
Transition Advisor Group helps individuals and families work toward achieving their ideal retirement. We partner with you to put all the proper financial steps in place for a successful retirement.
Pursue your retirement goals, protect your assets, and transition with confidence with Transition Advisor Group.
Call us today to schedule a meeting and receive a custom strategy that meets your financial needs and lifestyle.
Okay, so as we close today, again, I just want to make sure that I make it available to you information that I think is absolutely needed for a good retirement. Taxes are so important, so let's make sure that you make the best of those. We put together a packet that we would like to offer you today, and all of this information is in here. If you're like me, I certainly don't remember everything. That I would never remember all those numbers, but they're all written right down here for you in this packet. And if all you have to do is call our office, we can mail one to you. If you'd like to stop by our office, we'll be glad to give it to you. If you want to call and set up an appointment to come in, and I can review them with you and see how they can be applicable into your own personal retirement, that's what it's all about. Everybody's retirement is unique to you. No two are the same. When I do financial plans, there's never two the same. We can even sit down with you and do a comprehensive financial plan and see which one of these are going to mean the most to you. One of my goals is always to keep the community knowledgeable. We're here for you. We'd love to sit down and talk with you. Feel free to give our office a call at 717-718-5790 or email us at go on our website, and you can set an appointment there, make a request on there at tag-pa.com. Thank you.